Hey there, everybody. It's time to clean up this old tree. Funny story about this. This tree's been in the family for so long time. All the way back to when I was in elementary school. I think we picked it up at a local grocery store on clearance, and it was probably in a little quart-sized pot. And then it eventually graduated into a bigger pot and then a bigger pot. And then, it sat on my parents' front porch for a very long time. And then when I moved out after I got married, it came with me, and it's been with me at every one of our houses. Moved 3 times since. And yeah, it's pretty old. Probably 40 plus years old. Yeah, it's pretty old. But it's never been very successful. In fact, I had to transplant it a couple of years ago, and then I showed a video of what it looked like after I transplanted it. Here's a picture of that right now, and that's after a month of growth after transplanting it. It was pretty sickly. But yeah, this was after I did the big transplant, and this is what it looked like in May of 2020. And not looking too bad, but definitely not like it's looking today. And then I did a video of trimming it last year, and it grew mostly on the top last year, and looked, when I trimmed it, like I feel like it looked like an hourglass. But now it's put on so much growth that I was able to trim it a little bit more evenly on the bottom. It's filling out towards the bottom. But yeah, no, it it was super sickly. In fact, before I transplanted it, and then it's actually on drip irrigation, that it gets watered every day, which is good because it's a quite big tree in a small pot, so that really benefits it. But before I did any of that, I never ever trimmed the tree because it never really grew. Probably because it didn't have enough water and didn't have enough care. But now that I'm actually taking care of it, it's been quite different. So yeah, this is just me trimming up the growth from this last year, and it was, taller than the house, which that's never happened before. But you can see it's more of an even trim now as we look, from far away. And I wanted the top to be kind of flat, and then just to kind of be a cylinder shape all the way around. Kind of reminds me of those fancy hedges that they have at Disneyland, and where they have the different shaped trees out in front of Small World. Yeah, but it'd be great to put some lights in that for Christmas, and make it look really cheerful in that corner over there. But that's where it's kind of lived since we lived here, in the corner of the house there. So I think it's going to be a good spot and for it to continue to grow, and I hope that it does. But yeah, so I'm just going through and pulling out some dead leaves. There's some dead growth inside there. Taking off the bottom layer of leaves and some weeds down at the bottom for some reason. I'm always really good about growing weeds. So yeah, pulling those out there and kind of roughing up that dirt a little bit, because before transplanting it and then putting it in a new pot, which, by the way, this looks like an expensive pot, but it was actually really reasonable at Aldi. They didn't have these pots this year, but wow, I'm so glad I got that. You can see a better shot of the pot there. Before that, I never fertilized, hardly ever anyways, and this is what I'm doing right now. I'm just using a basic organic all-purpose plant food by Eco Scraps. Let me say that again, Eco Scraps. And I'm just putting that around the bottom. I'm kind of heavily fertilizing it because it is in a pot, and everything kind of leaches out of the bottom, and anything that's in a pot, it's up to us to water and feed it, because if we don't, then it's not going to have any nutrients, unlike something that would be in the ground. So yeah, I just did 2 little cupfuls of the fertilizer and then roughed it up around the bottom, and now I'm just sweeping up here because I made quite the mess. But what is interesting about this whole process is that it's really taken shape into quite a magnificent tree after really so many years of being sickly and not looking very good. So yeah, I'm just sweeping up behind here. That's kind of its little home back there. And then I'm sweeping up the leaves and any of the excess fertilizer that might have fallen on the ground. And then making sure that that's all cleaned up before I put it back in its spot. I had to cut the drip line to get it out, so I'm going to have to repair that when I push it back in there. But yeah, while I'm doing this, I'm thinking, wow, I'm getting a lot of sap all over my skin here because those of you who know, ficus trees are sappy, and when you cut them, just like when you cut a flower that has any kind of like that white sap, it's very similar to that. And so I got that all over my arms, and I washed that off a little bit later. But yeah, no, it's sappy, and but it's not too bad. So already you can tell just by cleaning up around and pulling out the weeds off the bottom and then sweeping up around everything, it looks so much better. I had trimmed those boxwoods that are behind there a couple weeks ago, actually about a month ago, and so their new growth is fleshing out. But yeah, for some reason, around this time of year, I like to trim and get things cleaned up, and I think that's what I'm going to be doing. My goal is to start cleaning up certain areas of the backyard and eventually the front yard and get ready for my fall plantings. Not that I'm doing a lot for fall, but to kind of get ready for that, and change things up, weed things out, switch out some annuals. I'll be posting videos about that a little bit later, but yeah. And here I'm just roughing up the bottom, kind of getting that fertilizer down into the very, very tight root ball that this plant obviously has because it's in a pot. If it were in the ground, I'm sure this tree would be just giant, but it stays really nice sized and seems to be doing really well since I transplanted it. So yeah, just pushing that fertilizer down in there before I water it, and I reconnect it to its drip irrigation after I pull it back into its spot right there, and that's kind of where it lives. Right behind that hanging basket there, you can see it, kind of moving it into its spot, and yeah, it's going to look great. So anyways, that is this year's trimming of the ficus tree, and I'm sure it's just going to continue to look great, especially now that it's on drip irrigation. And yeah, it's not a big process, but it does take some time, and I'm so glad that I finally started to pay attention to this tree after so many years. I guess that's what being in quarantine does. It makes you realize and want to do things that you didn't have time to do before. So anyways, getting that pushed in there, and I'm so glad that it's starting to fill out the bottom so it has more of a cylinder shape, because I think that's what's going to really look nice. So yeah, more videos to come a little bit later on what's happening. Thanks for watching.